Hi there, good evening. Thanks for joining me in this fresh edition of the program, The Insight on Equinox Television. Tonight we shall be revisiting the Anglophone crisis. Yes, we shall be revisiting the Anglophone crisis. We shall take a different dimension. We shall be revisiting the Anglophone crisis as far as the higher institutions of learning in Cameroon is concerned. My guest tonight is somebody who is heading one of the chapters of the Higher Education Teachers Trade Union, SINES, University of Boyam. We shall be going back into the suspension of the strike action by the SINES UB chapter, as well as some nitty-gritties. Tonight, since he is from the education sector, we shall equally be looking at the GCE advanced and ordinary level results that recorded one of the lowest percentages in recent times and even in the history of the GC. But this and more will be yours right ahead. Join my guest and I for 52 minutes. You're watching The Insight on Equinox Television. A pleasure knowing that you're watching us on Equinox Television. My guest tonight is the president of the University of Boya chapter of the Higher Education Teachers Trade Union, SINES UB chapter, Professor James Are Abangma. Professor, good evening.
Good evening.
It's a pleasure having you on board.
The pleasure is mine also.
Many people will be surprised watching you on Equinox Television now. Where have you been?
Well, I've been around. I've been taking part in deliberations, ad hoc committee deliberations, until the forces of law and order decided to descend on us. Then I went into hiding. Thereafter, they got to me. We started negotiating, and after a long period of negotiations, I was convinced that it was necessary for us to suspend the strike.
When you say you went into hiding, what do you mean?
Yeah, when I say I went into hiding, I mean when they came for my arrest, I could not surrender myself for arrest. I had to escape and then went into hiding.
That was when?
I'm not very good with dates, but that should be sometime in July. June. I'm not very good with dates.
Was it immediately after the arrest of the consortium leaders?
After the arrest of the consortium leaders, I started having strong signals that they will come for some of us. I started with when my son was taken to the police station with a boy in the house, and they needed me to go and identify him. So I asked myself, why do I need to go and identify my son in the police station?
How did it come about that your son found himself at the police station? Was he picked on the roadside?
No, it wasn't. He was the boy in my house was invited for some questioning, and then he ended up being, since they were the only two in the house, he could not go back to the house to drop the child, so the two of them had to go to the police station.
At that time, where were you?
I wasn't at home. At that time, we had just held a meeting in school. We held a SINES meeting in school, had some deliberations and reached some recommendations, which were never made public. So on my way back to the house, I got the news, and then I knew I'd been having strong signals that we'll be rounded up, so I decided to back away.
Mm-hmm. And finally, how many rounds did the police make to your compound?
They were there as long as possible because I heard the whole of the quarter was surrounded. They came with about 4 vehicles looking for me, and the whole quarter was surrounded. Later they came in Mufti, and they were making constant patrols in the area. So I wasn't there. This I just heard from people.
Where did you go to?
Well, actually, I had a strong feeling. They actually surrounded my house.
When you were inside?
Yes, but I had to make a way.
How did you make a way?
Well, it's something beyond explanation. So
you disappeared from the house?
One cannot reveal his secrets. But before then, I had known that it would not be possible for me to be arrested. Under any circumstance, it would not be possible for me to be arrested.
Really?
Yes.
On what aspect did you base your this conviction?
Religious. Based on religious.
So your faith made you to disappear from the house, Professor?
I had a number of prophets. I had a number of revelations. And since then, during the period of the ad hoc committee meeting, we were always soaked in prayers, led by Tasang and some other people. And so we're somehow spirited. I continued in the spirit, and then I knew that I was covered.
So I'm very interested in the place surrounding your house and ending up entering your house and they don't find you. When you disappeared from the house, where did you go to? Well,
it's never good to reveal one's facts, especially with the fact of manhood. So I left my house. I was shortly between Nigeria and Cameroon because I had this dislocation of the knee. Because while we were in Kumba, we're using our phones, and before I knew, security officers surrounded the house where I was. So my vice president and myself still made a way out of the place, and then we knew that it was not safe around.
That's Dr. Sango?
Dr. Sango Mati. Mm-hmm. So we succeeded in making a way, and I had the option of going to stay in Nigeria because my family was already there. But I thought of Dr. Sango, whose family was in Cameroon. And then secondly, just like a fowl with many chicks, my two colleagues were in detention. So I didn't find it necessary to abandon them and go to Nigeria. Because I had I had many calls. They gave me about 1 hour for a vehicle to take me to Abuja and all of that. Mm-hmm. But just like a hen with many chicks, I could not abandon and go to Nigeria.
The same calls you had from your supporters, the same calls were you receiving from the part of the government urging you to call off the strike?
No, by that time when I left Kumba, I realized I was no longer safe to use my phone. So I had to look for something else to use and communicate. Because I knew even presently, I know my phone, any information in my phone is public. So I decided to leave, but it wasn't possible for the national president of SINES to get to me. But somebody told me he was looking for a means to get to me because he confessed to the minister that he does not know about my whereabouts. He did not know about my whereabouts. So finally, when I got the information, I called him and discussed a few things with him. He told me to go and suspend the strike. I told him it is not done that way in Boya. We have to pass through certain procedures that an individual cannot just go on air and suspend a strike. The strike was declared by the General Assembly and has to be called up by the General Assembly. So it was not possible. It was illegal for me to go on air and declare the strike, the suspension of strike. So the situation dragged, but finally we could not discuss any longer until when I had another group that had been looking for opportunity to get to me for discussions. And then they got to Dr. Sango first. When he told me, I just brushed the matter aside.
Which group is that?
I mean the high power delegation from Yaoundé.
Okay.
Yes, that finally negotiated for the suspension of strike with us.
Now tell us, because at a certain moment when you were running away from your home, at a certain moment you came back, you resurfaced. What happened that you resurfaced in the public sphere, everywhere we're seeing you? What happened?
No,
because when you resurfaced, many thought that money had changed hands under the table.
No, you mean when I came to suspend the strike?
Yes.
Okay, but let me tell you first. At first, when I went away from my house, I realized that I was not well dressed. I had to come back to my house to dress up well, wear my shoes. When my wife came to the house and met me, she nearly collapsed because everywhere was tense looking for me. So finally, I had to bid her goodbye. I went. Okay, when they got to us now in hiding, we had a lot of deliberations in Nigeria. Even in Bamenda, we had a lot of meetings with lawyers. We had meetings with the president of Sines University of Bamenda. We held so many deliberations. Then I told them that it is the place of the General Assembly in Boya to call off the strike. So I was given, by then I had an injured knee. I could not be moving with public transport. I was given a vehicle because I said it was not possible for me to come by public transport. So I'm sure when people saw me with a vehicle, they concluded that I was already on the other side. So I came, called colleagues for us to decide on whether to suspend the strike or not. Let me get back to issues that convinced me to call off the strike. I went to the University of Bamenda. I saw students in full session in the university. So I gave signals to friends that if they cannot see about stopping them from going to school, they now come back to Boya and suspend the strike, because finally I'll be the one to blame. So I came to Boya, called colleagues for a meeting. No one was ready to attend. By then, the last meeting we held before they came for me, the Vice Chancellor wanted that everybody who attended the meeting should be arrested. So people were no longer...
That's the former Vice Chancellor?
The former Vice Chancellor.
Dr. Nalova?
Dr. Nalova.
Why?
So, I don't know. That was his own. He was never comfortable. I mean, she was never comfortable with dialogue. Mm-hmm. So she was poor at dialogue, let me put it that way, because we never held any discussions with her. Her own was just to use force. And then we also became hardened and were prepared for the wars. So
she indirectly radicalized you?
Yes, she did. And even the students, because even the students, it was her place to receive the students and dialogue with them, solve their demands, because they held placards saying no violence, shouting no violence, until things happened the way they happened. You saw the images in the internet and all over, until things had to break down to that level.
Now you suspended the strike. It was not suspended by the General Assembly?
Yes. I struggled to convene the General Assembly. Nobody was ready to attend. I tried to get to a couple of friends. In short, the atmosphere was so tense. So I used my own discretion. To got into negotiations, thinking that we could in a stalemate, make the step forward so that government will complement our efforts by making the step forward. Because I was hit because two of my seniors members were in detention. My students were also in detention. So the burden was on me than any other union member. And I thought that by making a step forward, government will complement my effort and also make a step forward. And we gave in our demands. All have been fulfilled apart from one, which was even the first demand we made.
The release of Agbobala,
Dr. Fontaine, and the students.
So don't you see that the government played a double card, a double game here?
Well, all what they have been telling us is that the thing has gone to a level where we no longer have control. But I feel that with any government that is responsive and responsible, there's no level which is beyond repair. And I feel with a delay, things are instead worsening. And I'll tell you how we started.
Yes, but before you go to that, we need to clear some doubt. How much did the government give you to call off the strike?
I did not need any money to call off the strike. Honestly, those people we negotiated with are there, and they are listening to me. We never took even a dime from anybody to call off the strike. We did not need a franc from somebody. We never collected money from the people to declare the strike, and we did not need money from government. We did not call off the strike. We suspended the strike.
Meaning the strike can begin even tomorrow, Monday?
Yes. There's a lot of pressure on me from the students and colleagues that the best demand has not been met. So that puts me under pressure, and then it makes the situation very cloudy.
But there are other opinions that if you didn't collect money, you at least suspended the strike for your security. Because now you're working, you're a free man. There are others who are out of Cameroon, Barrister Yambe, Wilfred Tassang.
It's not a problem of security. If it were to be the problem of security, I would have been a free man in Nigeria. I would have gone to Nigeria and be a free man. But I told you the circumstances under which still made me to be trying to get the signals to see how we can have a formal front of discussion. We realized that the strike had been hijacked by the population. Sines was no longer relevant. The population had taken over the strike, and then, but we also have the recommendations we had reached during the ad hoc committee. We're also interested in seeing how they will be implemented. The population will not monitor the implementation of those recommendations for us. We had to do it, and so we had to take the destiny into our hands to see how we can control things and move forward. Because we have been having a series of meetings now for the implementation of the recommendations of the ad hoc committee. The population could not have done that for us. We needed a formal front, and Sines provided that formal front for such negotiations.
So in essence, you coming back to Cameroon, Professor James Aria Bangma, you are telling the government watching you that you are not afraid of any arrest anymore?
No. When I accepted coming out, I was ready for the worst. When I accepted coming out of my hiding place, I knew anything could happen to me. And when we even took the decision to change things, we were ready for the worst. Yes. So those being in the cell there, it's just chance. Any of us could have been there. Yes. And even those who died, any of us could have died. equally. Yes. So in a revolution, when you are struggling, when you are swimming against a current, you know that anything can happen to you. So it's not over yet.
Yes, we shall be coming to that because we still have much to talk about now. Tell us how things have been moving from the day of arrest on 17th of January 2017 to today. Tell us how things have been moving, how negotiations have been going on between you and the government from the day they arrested your peers, your colleagues.
Well, the day they arrested my colleagues, we mobilized to go and find out at the police station. As we were making findings, they directed us that they were taken to the central police station in Boya. We marched to the central police station. We got there. They told us they were not there. So we concluded that they were in JME. We went back there, only for the police to bring a water cannon. And before we knew, they were exploding water on us, and everybody had to disperse. We are unarmed citizens, and we knew that we went for peace, but things changed.
So looking at the way government handled the situation, has government been fair? Has the government been really fair?
Not at all. I'll take you back to Bamenda. Even while we were still holding frank discussions in the hall, whenever we came outside, something else happened. You know, the population counted on us. Sometimes as we are leaving the hall, the bike riders provide us an escort to our various hotels. So that last day, they shot about 3 or 4 of them.
Around Finance Junction?
Yes.
I was personally there.
And that was where, that day, Tassan had to spend the night in the hospital with them. And I'm sure that is why everything became radicalized. I'm sure, although some people are tagging Tassan SCNC, then I, as a political scientist, I know the way things go. I was observing the discussions with a keen eye of a political scientist. You know, the behavior of people was in a spectrum. Let's say we could start from the left, those who needed change. So the action of police, after a period, we pushed some of those people to federalism. We knew that even if they granted those reforms, they changed those things we wanted to be changed. After a short while, they could be taken back in the centralized system of administration. So that was why many people thought that we should advocate for the federal system of government, whereby the regions or the states will be able to control their own destiny. So because we realize that there are some regions, if you ask their citizens to go back to the regions, they will not have space. I mean, in terms of the sharing of the national cake, some people are overemployed. Some people from certain regions, certain ethnic groups, they are over-benefiting from the system. And at the same time, Anglophones were being marginalized. Because we went into findings of records in professional schools, records of those who succeed in professional exams and all of that. We realized that if the trend continued, Anglophone regions will be swallowed up. Because there was a time my wife went to the hospital to consult. She could not understand the language of the doctor. The doctor could not understand her. She ended up being frustrated, went to Mbingo. I had to take her to Mbingo next in Mutengene because she could not communicate with the medical doctor.
Okay. Yeah, Prof, you personally, are you for secession or federalism?
Well, we advocated for federalism. We advocated for federalism. But as I said, settling on one position depends on the action of government. There's no one who can be permanent in a position. That's what I told you. And it depends on your emotions too. If you are so charged with emotions, you can be driven from merely asking for change to cessation.
So government action so far, how has it been? Is it pushing, is it radicalizing people?
Government action is actually radicalizing people. It is.
Why?
Because I'm always of the opinion that in the case of any strike action, when the police are brought in, the situation gets to degenerates. Whenever police and gendarme are brought in to handle a strike action, things usually degenerate because some of them come there with different feelings. And then the person who brings them there loses control over them. You saw what happened in Boya and what had been happening in Bamenda. So I feel that the character of government is radicalizing people.
Now, you told me a while ago that it's not yet over. Now, what are the prospects when you look at the future? Your colleagues are still in prison. Back to school is near. Will students go back to school? University of Boya, where you are the president of the chapter?
Well, for the University of Boya, we have labored all this while. In a class of 200, sometimes you may find about 40 students or less. We've tried all we could. Sometimes people will say it is the parents who hold children home. Children too take their own decisions not to come to school. I'll take an example of the Department of Political Science, the master's degree. Because their classmate Atia Tilaros is in detention, the students boycotted studies. Now they cannot go to class while their classmate is in Kondengi. They boycotted classes. I'm not sure that's the decision of their parents. It's not the decision of their parents. Till date. We have two options there. It is the other option, public administration, which has a few students attending. But political science, MSc, they all boycotted classes. So it is not just, we don't attribute everything to parents. Even the children take decisions themselves. And on many occasions, some of those student leaders have been coming to me to complain that the things that we promised them will happen have never happened. And they refer to the release of the lecturers and students of the university.
So what are you telling the government now?
Well, my advice to the government is that we come from two different backgrounds. I know that the character of Cameroon administration is principally French, but also as a public administrator, I know that with the French, they emphasize on the interests of the state. We emphasize on the interests of the citizens. So there is a conflict of interest there in the two cultures.
Direct and indirect rule?
Yeah, we feel that it is the interests of the people that make up the interests of the state. But the French system, which is built on Napoleonic laws and later to reformed by de Gaulle. The interest, state power is supreme, and then there is the maximization of state power, which is the opposite of the English system of governance. So it's not a sign of weakness for people to be pardoned. It is not, rather it is a sign of strength for school to resume, for the universities to properly open their doors. I feel that the actors have to be brought back for discussions.
And you are talking about the release of Agbobala.
The release of Agbobala, Fontem, and to bring them to the table for discussions.
And why not even other Anglophones? Or you are talking only about the
other Anglophones, not only my colleagues, other Anglophones like Justice Aya, Manjo BBC, and all of those people. I feel that the more we delay things, the more we radicalize some of these youths. And I was in a place, I saw the behavior of youths, and I wept that the delay has actually radicalized many youths.
That's looking at the current trend.
The current trend
of events.
The current trend of events, yes. Because sometimes people may be thinking that, like the normal trend, when they are tired, they'll go back to school. But it may not work like that in all circumstances. It may not work because many people are ready to sacrifice for long-lasting change. That's what I've seen in the field. I've talked to many people, because at first people thought that the lawyers will not be out for up to 2 months. When they will be hungry, they will go back to the court. But it's taking longer than expected. So that trend has been subverted, the way things usually happen. So what we need now is effective dialogue as a way forward.
Before school resumption?
Yes.
Not even the coming of a new vice chancellor in UB can push students to go back to school?
The vice chancellor of UB has his own limits. He cannot release the colleagues from detention. We've discussed it with him. He said those were state matters. When we had a meeting with him, we discussed it. He said those were state matters. So it is the place of the state to see how those higher issues can be handled.
So you are not envisaging any back to school full come October in the University of Boya or in other state universities like the Northwest and the Southwest?
There are some students even there, right there in Boya. I tried to convince them to even take the second semester, but they found it reluctant to do so. And not just those of political science, those of other departments. They found it difficult to do so. And they are ready to pay the sacrifice. We saw, even with the GC.
We shall be talking about the GC in the second part of this program. Let's try to round up things here. Now, when we look at the different delegations that have gone out of Cameroon, different delegations from different ministries, different ministers have gone out to explain to the members of the diaspora. When you look at the burning of a flag, when you look at the burning of schools, how can you react, or what would be a reaction? Is the solution today burning of schools and markets for the release of those in jail? Could this be the solution? Or it's just an aspect of also holding tight?
It's not the solution. Burning of school, burning of markets, it's not the solution. But when we need to rebuild those schools, and with scarce resources, some of those schools may never be rebuilt. But there is something we call transfer aggression. Sometimes, as the mother of the house, your husband can inflict pain on you, then you transfer it to the child in the house. I'm sure that is when your needs are blocked.
You are talking as a political scientist.
Yes, when your needs are blocked. It's just like damming water. When you build a dam across a stream, if the stream has its way, it will break the wall. So that's the reaction of individuals. It's out of frustration that they are carrying out those actions. But if we hold meaningful dialogue, talk to the people, I think the situation can be normalized.
The delegation from government to several countries out of Cameroon?
The delegation, well, I know, as I told you, we are standing now in 3 positions. Anglophones are divided now into 3 positions. Those who want change, those who want federalism, and those who want secession.
Where do you stand?
I told you I had been for federation.
You left change, you went to federation.
Yes,
where are you going to now?
I told you the circumstances why I advocated for federation, because if that change is brought about within a short period, they can take it back. So we need an institutionalized change that will be more permanent. Okay. So that's what we advocated for.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break. This disturbing images coming all the way from the BLM division. Our Southwest regional correspondent, Derek Jato, traveled there, where flood actually destroyed several houses in the locality. When we come back, my guest and I will be talking about the GCE 2017 session. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Their houses were here, and a natural disaster came and swept it away from the foundation. With their shelters and properties gone, the victims are now homeless on the land of their forefathers.
Na inode, na kuko wemi apura inode, kafi inode. Mama said we don't do since.
No pin was removed from my identity, my credentials, everything was taken off.
You are homeless now.
Their farmlands too were carried away.
They come from over there. The war of the cocoa farm from up and the farms have been cleared away. Then this way, down the downer part, was divided.
So where you are standing was actually a farm?
It was a farm, you can see.
Accessibility alone here is very difficult, and courageous farmers could only manage to go and stand on the edges of the cliffs created by the calamity, and from a distance point at their farmlands, which is now the shadow of its own self. And what is creeping and fast into the 8 villages that were affected by this natural disaster in Nguti subdivision is hunger. There is shortage of food in the area.
Foodstuffs and all other things. So people in the area, they be stranded.
I still live in a room. I've been living 1 week now. You don't need to get food.
Hunger, no woman. Then up to this time, road all down lock or go for bushing for venture.
At the moment, these people that their houses were destroyed by the suspected earthquake are now living at the Njungo Health Center.
We don't know the future because they are homeless. I cannot drive them, and it's not easy to manage them because I've already sent news in the village so that people should be bringing food. I don't know how long this can take.
While waiting for the government and well-wishers for assistance.
That was Derek Jato, just fresh from Nguti subdivision in the southwest region of the country. My guest tonight, Professor James Are Abangma. He is the president of the National Higher Education Syndicate, University of Goya, SINES UB chapter, With him, we have been talking about the suspension of the strike action some time ago and the prospects of the way forward as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned in the education sector. And Professor Are Abangma has been telling me of how the only solution is the release of those who have been imprisoned for positive dialogue. Now we are still talking education, Professor. Let's not talk the GCE 2017 session. Results are out. Catastrophic result, we say. 25% for ordinary level and just slightly over 30% for the GCE advanced level. Was there any reason writing the GCE at all?
Well, I think even amongst Anglophones, there may be some people who are holding weak positions, and under such circumstances, they would have permitted their children to write, and others whose hands are tied would have also permitted their children to write. And I feel some of these students may have had some extra classes somewhere before writing the exam, but others may not have had the opportunity of having those classes. And I think the board did not wish to compromise standards. That was why they allowed the percentages to be maintained. So the fact that people wrote the exams when they were not ready did not mean that they could influence the results. And I'm sure that is why you have those percentages.
Was there reason writing the GCE at all when people knew that school was activities were paralyzed?
I think the reason for asking for the exam to be written was that it could lead to the cancellation of the school year for both Anglophone and Francophone students. And I think that by getting some people to write, the country has succeeded doing what it wished to do. Because if they had refused writing GC, it would have led to the cancellation of the school year. So that is the importance of writing the GC to those who want it so.
Now, you as a parent, you as a teacher, as a political scientist, how do you, what can be a comment today looking at the future of some of these youths who took part in the GCE?
I feel that if things are handled in such patchy manner, the situation will be difficult to normalize. And I go back to what I've been saying. There's a need for frank dialogue and a need to chart the way forward, because we cannot be playing hide and seek to carry things forward when they are not actually moving. So even in the university, we've tried what we can with the suspension. Even I had a lot of resistance from colleagues when I suspended the strike. But after explaining to them the circumstances which led to suspending the strike action, they saw with me. But for some time now, they had been mounting a lot of pressure that the things that they wish to happen have not happened, especially the release of our colleagues and students. So there was no need suspending the strike. So I feel that the situation is slipping off my hands because there's so much pressure right from the students and from colleagues.
So you are telling the government that you are helpless now?
Yes, I'm telling
and powerless?
Yes, as I said when I was suspending the strike, an action can make one a Judas or a savior. And the way the action is rejected will make you a Judas. But when it is accepted, you become a savior.
But you were made a Judas instead.
I had all kind of things said about me that I'd collected money here and there and all of that. But those very people, even most people in the diaspora have come to know that I did not collect money. I know that because I have my students abroad who are communicating with me, and they try to convince the people that I am not of that stock, that they know me very well, they know who their lecturer is, that I cannot degrade myself to sell the whole course just to collect money. I'm not a rich person, but I'm not so poor to sell my reputation. So I manage with what I have. I don't envy anybody who has more. That's my life. I live a simple life. I don't envy anybody who has. My son sent a vehicle just during that period from the US. It has not been possible for me to clear the vehicle. If I had that money, I would have cleared my vehicle by now. So I don't do shady things. I'm sure if Fontem and Bala are not dehumanized by the prison conditions, they should know who I am. And they know that there's no way I can betray them. I cannot betray the cause. We've labored so much for things to be changed, and I cannot in the middle of things betray the cause. That's my stand. I cannot take even billions, even if billions were to be offered to me, I could not have collected.
Seriously?
Yes.
Even today, if the government comes with...
Even today. I had never dreamt of collecting cheap money anywhere. I had never dreamt of being given a cheap position anywhere. I have been I'm even planning my life to be a farmer. I'm already planning my life to be a farmer. I don't rely on anybody. So people who are close to me, they can tell you who I am. That is my way of life.
Prof, it seems it's going to be very difficult for first-year students or for University of Buea and Bamenda to receive first-year students. It seems the number will drop drastically. Now, how will the university go about this? Since the result in the advanced level was very poor.
We should also remember that there are many who did not come back to school. There were many first-year students who did not come back to school. I'm sure they will help to swell up the number when they all both come to school.
They will reapply?
Yes, first-year students are supposed to reapply.
Okay.
Because you cannot suspend the academic year in the first year. You cannot. You can only suspend in the second year and third year. You cannot suspend in the first year. You have to reapply. So for those first-year students who did not come back to school, they have to reapply for admission.
Now, before we go, you are a professor in the University of Buea. You are the president of the SINES UB chapter, the Higher Education Teachers Trade Union. The issue of fake certificate in the University of Buea, what is the stand of SINES?
The issue of fake certificates, well, that has been handled by the administration. We've made our own. We've made our own opinion loud. And
I'm saying this because lecturers equally awarded them.
The fake certificates.
The students who passed through you validated their courses.
No, if a person entered with fake results and performs well in my course, I'm not the one in charge of admissions. There's no reason why I should fail the person because the person came in with fake results. In short, we don't even know. There were some specialists during admissions in those days. I started teaching since Joma's days, and Dr. Endele was the registrar at that time. They used to have specialists of admission, if not mistaken, but they were specialists.
For 1E?
I don't know about that. I never took time to. But each time we were registering students, if a student was not qualified, we asked the registrar to append his signature before we can because by that time we were registering students manually. So if a student did not qualify to enter the department, we'll ask for the registrar to sign the student's Form B before we can register the student.
All right. Okay, Professor, we're about leaving. Now you say school can only resume if those in jail are released?
No, what I'm saying is that school can only school can resume effectively if some minimum conditions are met, including the release of this the jailed lecturers, students. But during the discussions, seniors and other teachers' union had advocated that before we could go back for discussions, they need to release all those people in detention, and we still stand by that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for making it here in Douala. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is also mine for coming to Equinox and airing out my views.
It was equally a pleasure being with you in this latest edition of the program on Equinox Television, The Inside. If you did enjoy the program, take our rendezvous there for next week Sunday, same time, 6:30 p.m., same channel, Equinox Television. It is a channel for the people and of the people. Good night.